Welcome to the story of Ruth and Boaz, a story of love, faith, and God's redemption, a story that begins with loss and hardship, yet ends in the unfolding of God's divine plan. Our story takes place in ancient Bethlehem, where fields of barley sway under the sun and where a young woman named Ruth has just arrived, facing a life she never expected. Ruth was not from Israel. She was a Moabite woman, a widow who had faced her own heartbreak. After losing her husband, she made the courageous choice to leave her homeland of Moab and follow her mother-in-law, Naomi, back to Bethlehem. Naomi had also lost her husband and sons, and Ruth had no obligation to stay with her, but her loyalty ran deep. Ruth looked at Naomi and vowed, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." With nothing but hope and faith, Ruth set foot into an unknown future in a foreign land. Now as a foreign widow, Ruth had no wealth, no family in Israel, and no clear way to support herself or Naomi. But the laws of Israel allowed the poor and foreigners to follow behind the harvesters and gather any leftover grain, known as gleaning. Day after day, Ruth worked tirelessly gleaning in the fields. Her hard work and humble spirit caught the attention of others, including the field's owner, a man named Boaz. Boaz was a man of wealth and influence, and he was also a relative of Naomi's late husband. When he noticed Ruth gleaning in his field, he asked his workers about her and was moved when he heard of her loyalty to Naomi. With kindness, he approached her and said, "My daughter, do not go to another field. Stay here with my workers. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, help yourself to the water jars." Ruth was overwhelmed by his kindness. She fell at his feet and asked, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes, since I am a foreigner?" And Boaz answered her, "I've heard of all you have done for your mother-in-law, leaving your father and mother and the land of your birth, to come to a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done." As the days passed, Ruth continued to glean in Boaz's fields. He made sure she was protected, fed, and treated kindly. Boaz's care for Ruth was not just out of obligation. He admired her faith and the quiet strength she showed through every hardship. When Naomi learned of Boaz's kindness, her heart stirred with hope. She knew that Boaz was a kinsman redeemer, a man who, by Jewish custom, could choose to marry a widow in his family line and restore her family's name and property. Naomi saw a glimmer of possibility for Ruth's future and encouraged her to seek Boaz as her kinsman redeemer. At night time, at a threshing floor, Ruth approaches Boaz as he sleeps, quietly uncovering his feet, a sign of seeking his protection and redemption. Following Naomi's counsel, Ruth went to the threshing floor where Boaz was sleeping. She approached him humbly, uncovering his feet, a custom that symbolized her request for him to become her protector and redeemer. At midnight, Boaz awoke and found Ruth at his feet. He asked her who she was, and she replied, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread the corner of your garment over me, for you are a kinsman redeemer." Boaz, moved by Ruth's honor and courage, told her, "May the Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than ever before, not running after younger men, rich or poor. Do not be afraid. I will do for you all you ask." Yet there was one obstacle. Another relative held a prior claim to redeem the family's property. In the morning, Boaz went to the town gate, where legal matters were settled, to discuss Ruth's situation. At the town gate, Boaz spoke to the other relative. Initially, this man agreed to redeem the property, but when he learned that he would need to marry Ruth, he declined, not wanting to risk his inheritance. He removed his sandal, a traditional symbol of transferring his rights, and gave it to Boaz. The path was now clear for Boaz to redeem Ruth. Soon after, Ruth and Boaz were married. Their love story, born of faith and loyalty, was celebrated by the people of Bethlehem. Ruth, the foreign widow who had once been a stranger in this land, found a family, a home, and a new beginning through her faithfulness and God's providence. In time, Ruth gave birth to a son named Obed. The women of Bethlehem rejoiced with Naomi, saying, "Praise be to the Lord, who has not left you without a redeemer. May this child restore your life and sustain you in your old age." Obed became the grandfather of King David, placing Ruth and Boaz in the direct lineage of Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Through their faith and redemption, God wove Ruth and Boaz into his divine plan for salvation. The story of Ruth and Boaz reminds us that even in the midst of hardship, God's hand is at work, bringing hope and redemption. Ruth's simple choice to remain faithful and Boaz's honorable character brought blessings that reached far beyond their lifetimes. Today, this story stands as a testimony to God's faithfulness. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single choice: to love, to stay loyal, and to trust in God's provision.